Alexis de Tocqueville explained why America worked. 2 centuries later, the only question is, does it still? Does America still work? Not, is it perfect? Not, is it winning? Does it still work the way Tocqueville described? The way a free society is supposed to work, from the inside out? This is Tocqueville applied to America today. A framework, a checkup, and a few questions that might be uncomfortable, in the best way. Alexis de Tocqueville was a French traveler in the 1830s. He came to America to study prisons, but he ended up studying something bigger: the invisible forces that make a democracy stable or unstable. Tocqueville didn't just describe laws. He diagnosed culture. He looked at people, habits, associations, religion, and civic life, and asked why liberty survived here when it often collapsed elsewhere. In Part 1, we covered his main thesis. Liberty depends on character, and that character is formed and protected through 3 big things: cultural habits, local associations, and moral formation, plus one quiet warning about what happens when those weaken. So Part 2 is simple. We take Tocqueville's framework and ask, what does the dashboard read today? Not to assign blame, not to pick teams, just to see clearly. Tocqueville said the deepest foundation of liberty wasn't legal. It was cultural. He called it mores, the moral habits of the heart. Mores are what people do without being forced, what they respect, what they refuse, the internal guardrails that make external freedom safe. Here's a Tocqueville question. What does our culture reward right now? Patience or performance? Character or clout? Restraint or outrage? Another question. How much trust is left in the average community? Because trust is the hidden currency of freedom. When trust is high, you need fewer rules. When trust collapses, control rushes in. Do we speak more about rights than responsibilities now? And if we do, what happens when a society trains citizens to demand benefits but not practice self-government? If the goal is a free society, where is the primary work done? In public fights or private formation? And are we investing in the places that build mature citizens? None of this is about being better than. Modern life is exhausting, but Tocqueville would still ask, are our habits training us for liberty or training us for dependency? Tocqueville's great American discovery was associations, ordinary people forming groups to solve problems locally. Associations teach the civic skills that freedom requires: cooperation, persuasion, compromise, leadership, and patience. Here's the question. If fewer people join real-world associations, what fills the gap? Do we replace local groups with online tribes? Online spaces can connect us, but do they train the same muscles? Do they reward problem-solving or performative outrage? Tocqueville would ask, can we still disagree without becoming enemies? And where do people learn that skill if not in local civic life? Are we becoming spectators of national drama instead of participants in local solutions? And if we outsource our civic muscle, what happens to self-government? Tocqueville warned that when civil society weakens, a vacuum forms, and vacuums don't stay empty. If fewer problems are solved locally, more problems are handed upward. And the higher you hand them, the more management you invite. Tocqueville didn't argue for theocracy. He argued that moral formation matters, because freedom requires restraint. He believed religion helped place a moral ceiling over power and over passion, teaching that there are lines you don't cross, even when you could. If religion declines in influence, what replaces it as the primary moral teacher? Schools, media, politics, entertainment, algorithms. And are those replacements forming mature citizens? Another question. When people lose shared moral grounding, do they start looking for meaning in politics? And if politics becomes ultimate, can a society still compromise? Whether someone is religious or not, Tocqueville would still ask, where are the institutions that form humility, duty, forgiveness, and service? Because those are the habits that keep liberty from becoming chaos. Moral formation builds trust, and trust reduces the need for coercion. If trust is falling, Tocqueville would ask, what happened to the engines that used to produce it? Tocqueville's most haunting prediction wasn't a dictator. It was soft despotism, comfortable control. His question might be, does convenience train strength or dependence? Not because convenience is evil, but because it can slowly teach people to expect life to be managed. Soft despotism doesn't come with a crown. It comes with paperwork. It grows through systems that make life smoother but also narrower. Tocqueville feared isolated individuals, people who withdraw into private life and stop acting together. Isolation makes citizens easier to manage because they stop practicing power. Here's a reflective question. How often do we consent to things we don't understand because it's easier? What happens to a free people when frictionless becomes the highest good? Freedom is not just a condition, it's a skill. If people stop practicing the skills of self-rule, should we be surprised when more rule arrives? The quiet trade is always the same, responsibility for comfort. And the scary part is that no one has to force it. People choose it, one small choice at a time. Tocqueville's framework isn't just a warning, it's also a roadmap. Because if the problem is cultural and local, the repair can be cultural and local too. If America works when people practice self-government, then the most hopeful question becomes, where can we start practicing again? First question, what do you belong to that's real and local? A place where you are needed, not just entertained. Second question, where do you serve with people who don't think exactly like you? Because service is one of the fastest ways to rebuild civic trust. Third, what habits are forming you right now? If freedom requires self-control, are your daily habits strengthening that or eroding it? Fourth, do you show up where decisions are made locally? Not to rage, not to perform, just to participate like a citizen. Fifth, who are you forming? Because Tocqueville would say the future of liberty isn't determined only by elections. It's shaped by the next generation's habits. If we're worried America feels harder to hold together, Tocqueville gives us 4 places to look: our moral habits, our local associations, our sources of formation, and the comfort-dependence trade. So, does America still work? Maybe the answer is not yes or no. Maybe the real question is, are we still doing the things that make it work? If Tocqueville is right, then the fate of liberty isn't only in Washington. It's in whether ordinary people still practice self-government where they live. This is Foundations of Liberty. If you want more videos like this on history, principles, and the habits that make freedom possible, please like and subscribe. For the fight for liberty never ends. It only changes hands.